I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about George Clooney and Brad Pitt. CR is here, of course, and a special guest, the Doug Emhoff of The Big Picture. It's Zach Barron.
I hear you guys have a great podcast, so I'm really excited to check it out.
This is your first time hearing us speak into microphone, Zach. That's not true. You've been on the show before, but you're here for a very special reason. You recently profiled George Clooney and Brad Pitt in the pages of GQ. I guess interviewed them. It was more of a, how would you describe that as a feature, a profile?
I would describe it as an interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to get into the text here.
Free-flowing exchange of ideas.
Yeah, it was more of
I would say I've
written
written features of, yes. We conducted a podcast in south of France. Yeah, I've done features with both of them, but I would call that a feature, Q&A interview.
Okay.
Probably not profile.
So we're drafting their movies on this podcast.
We don't get. That's it. You don't want to talk about Miraval. You don't want to talk about.
I will be circling back.
It's all going to come up.
Just take a deep breath. This is just setting up the conversation. George Clooney and Brad Pitt have a movie coming out together. They've started movies before in the past.
I just want to talk about the man-made lake for a while. You know?
You're going to have plenty of terrain to trample upon. I promise you. You guys did go to France. That's where the interview transpired.
Yes.
You did not go to the interview setting, which I think is probably was that George's call, Brad's call?
No, that was my choice.
Okay.
And I don't. You're gonna catch plenty of heat in this episode, Zach, but I don't want you to catch heat for that.
From whom? Who will he be catching?
I mean, from the three of us, and certainly
I'm not doing anything.
Zach is my brother.
Just to be clear,
He's
you
a
would not
diamond.
have made it past Miraval security. I don't know what scenario you're entertaining in your head.
You did describe it. It was like very imposing. No, this is the time to paint a nice supportive picture of our marriage before things get ugly.
This is the time?
Yeah.
What about all the episodes of The Big Picture before this?
Yeah, I'd like a word about that, actually.
Listen, you're gonna have plenty of time. So we did go to France.
The movie's called Wolves, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chris.
they're
I appreciate
movies,
that.
sure. And because it was over Memorial Day weekend and it worked out, and my parents came to stay with Knox, so we got to go to Paris. And then you were like, "Are you sure you don't want to try to come to the south of France with me?" Because we flew to Paris, spent some time in Paris, and then you were going down to Miraval. But there was what kind of traffic strike was it?
I'm sure Brad Pitt's fans are extremely excited to hear about this.
There was a traffic strike?
Yeah,
There was
there was an
train
air traffic
strike.
controller strike.
and
Air traffic controller.
Yes.
At the
Orly.
at Orly, and then there was a F1 race.
So all the
Cannes Film
trains,
Festival.
yes, all the trains were sold out.
Tough to get to the south of France at the time,
Right. And also, as you pointed out, I would have been kicked out by security, but also it was a work event. It's not like they were just going to set up a chair by the pool for me and pour me rosé.
No.
So I opted to stay in Paris by myself, which was not a punishment. And you went. But you would have made the effort. That's all. Right?
Yeah, to find you a hotel room somewhere in the south of France at a safe distance from a property that you were not invited to.
Okay,
yes, I would have done that.
This is the energy that you're bringing to this. It's noted. We're 7 minutes in, and if this is how you want it to go, then I want to let you know that that's how it's going to go. Okay?
I'm going to make safe harbor for Zach by circling this conversation right back to the story. So you've interviewed both of these guys before.
I said, do you want to sit next to her?
I like to think I'm sitting next to Chris right now. Just for the record.
How'd you find them at this stage of their lives? They're like, these guys are they 60? They're just about 60.
Brad is, I believe, 60 and Clooney 63.
Okay.
And I think the last time I interviewed Clooney was 59, and Brad, I don't know how old he was. I think it was
it was pre-pandemic.
Probably 56 or something. And Clooney is getting deeper into his just dad, loafers, polo, khakis. Maul was there. The kids were there. They seemed like everybody was doing great. He actually lives near Brad and Miraval, but they had never been to each other's houses before.
It's iconic.
So what does that mean for their friendship? You told me this already, but when you told me that, I was like, they'd never hung out in the south of France, even though they live within 10 minutes of each other.
Yeah, there's a moment in the story where I'm like, are you guys actually friends? And they're both like, yeah! In that
Because
way,
it's important to the brand that
kind of
they...
makes it sound like they
Yeah.
might not be friends. I think that people like Brad Pitt and George Clooney live lives that are not quite like other people's lives. And because of that, the friendships are probably real, but take a different form so that they can live 20 minutes away from each other in the south of France on two sort of similar estates and still not sort of visit in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
You know, and Pitt was killing Clooney for buying his estate online during the pandemic without even going there.
Yeah, that's like how Chris shops at J. Crew.
Yeah, exactly.
But for chateaus.
Clooney had the South of France passport instead of the J. Crew passport.
I just don't, you don't have to sign up for the account. You know, do you think George Clooney has like a Zillow account? With all his
that's an
personal
interesting
information?
question.
G. Clooney.
Do you think he actually presses the buy button? Like, does he clicking buttons or is someone doing that on
I would
his
hope
behalf?
it's the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the logistics of the story? Because you told me that Clooney said that he used Waze, but then that wasn't in the story. Did he not say that?
Oh, yeah, no, he used Waze.
He used Waze.
Ways
Okay.
to get there.
Yeah, he was like, I
The
put it to
Waze
Waze.
app.
It was 9 minutes.
Okay.
Do you think it's like that old guy thing where it's actually Google Maps, but he just calls everything Waze? Like,
We should say this story appeared on the cover of GQ
magazine.
magazine in
Yes.
September.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Listen.
I have a question for Zach that does actually take us into the conversation about their filmographies, but I don't want to jump ahead if that's
Feel free, Chris.
Okay.
You are not the third chair,
I'll tell
but
you
you'd
what
like
my
to be.
takeaway was from your wonderful piece was that George Clooney is definitely in the phase of his career where he's like, you could say taking his foot off the gas, or you could say he knows what he likes to do and he's not going to like deviate from his comfort zone really a lot. Whereas I think Brad Pitt, even in the last couple of years, even though when he's doing Bullet Train stuff, like is still pushing himself and still picking pretty provocative, interesting roles and projects for him to do. Did you notice that they were like in a different headspace about where they were in their careers at all?
So last time I talked to Clooney, he basically said, he was like, I'm a director now.
Okay.
He's like, and I'll act in my movie if it helps the movie get made. But other than that, like,
Why
I'm
start
not-
now? You
I'm
know,
not-
that's my take on him as a director.
Yeah.
But at the
Sorry,
same time,
George.
he was like at Miraval for the weekend from
Well, that was the last time I talked to him. So
Okay.
this time when I
Oh,
talked to him, he had basically changed his mind. Because he was like, if I direct a project, it's like 2 years of my life.
Okay.
I have young kids. I basically want to go back to being an actor for hire.
And so he's in this Noah Baumbach movie.
So he
coming
just
out
did
very-
Wolves with Brad, and then he was shooting at the time the new Noah Baumbach movie with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
And he's got like stuff coming up. He's
Okay.
gonna be on Broadway. He's like got stuff coming up. So he's flipped on it. And if you look at his like filmography from like the last 10, 15 years, he really isn't in anything that he didn't direct. But he's going back.
Okay.
And then Brad is doing the like apex alpha Hollywood thing of I pick one project every 2 years and I do it.
Mhm.
Now, are those projects like interesting and experimental? Like they tend to be, yeah. But even there, I think, you know, this is a guy who was like doing Ad Astra in 2019 and now is doing like the, you know, F1, which is one of the most expensive movies ever made for Apple.
Yeah, I guess I was just curious because, you know, there was some, you got aggregated a couple of times out of this article, the Tarantino stuff, the David O. Russell stuff.
Did you not tell the aggregators not to aggregate you beforehand?
Yeah, I was like, sir, this is this all belongs to me
Yeah.
and shall remain where it
Stop
was
putting
published.
Zach Barron on Hoops Hype.
Yeah.
But
Don't publish on the internet that George Clooney was mad.
I was thinking about when I was going back through some of Clooney's like big movies that he's acted in, how a couple of them, Three Kings, Syriana, like these were some of his best performances, but he came out of them being like, I either like basically severed my spine doing this movie or hated the experience. And whereas Brad Pitt has kind of danced from great filmmaker to great filmmaker and uses Plan B as like a production arm and seems to have a little bit more of a smoother time of it. I don't know if that's just from like outside looking in though.
So an interesting thing about Clooney, and we can like talk more about this, is the perception of him is as like a megawatt movie star.
Mhm.
But he's kind of the first guy to say, like, I actually tried a lot of things and a lot of things didn't work. And kind of explains his career that way, where he's like, I'm not an action star because I tried to be in action movies and I wasn't that great at it, you know? And I'm not like a straight comedian because I tried that too and that wasn't for me either. And it's like been these like bespoke stuff like Clayton, Michael Clayton,
Yeah.
or Brother Wear Out, that weird one-off parts that turned out to be like the most memorable thing for him. Whereas Brad Pitt has been like a guy reliably that you could put on a movie poster and make a movie around since, the 90s.
Yeah.
I think that really informs like how we'll talk about both of them during the draft too, because, candidly, when you look at George Clooney's filmography, it's kind of soft.
Mm-hmm.
It is surprisingly, especially in the last 20 years, bereft of major, major, major movies. And you asked a question in your piece about a comment that Quentin Tarantino made about his movie stardom. And that was one of the things that got aggregated. What did he say?
No, I did not ask you a question.
Oh, he brought it up.
Yeah, so to Chris's point, actually, I was talking about this because I was saying, I was asking if they were competitive with each other. And they were like, we're not. And I was like, I'm just a bystander, but I look at it and you look at how the great directors of their generation have gravitated towards one or the other of them. And so I was going through the examples and we were talking about it. It was like Tarantino really gravitated toward Brad. That's like his guy. And the Coens love Clooney. Gotten great work out of Clooney. Soderbergh leans Clooney, right? Fincher, Brad. So I was talking about this and I was saying, hey, if I were you, George, and I was looking at Quentin Tarantino, I'd be like, yo, I'm right here. What about me? And then it was him that brought up Quentin's comments in which Quentin allegedly said that he was not a true movie star.
What do you think of that supposition?
I think that he's got a point when it comes to filmography, but he's wrong when it comes to his performance of celebrity. Because I think that George Clooney still performs celebrity at a higher level, definitely than Brad Pitt, than a lot of people, where it's like, I am the person who will, frankly, he's writing op-eds that start Biden's, stepping down as a mainstream conversation topic beyond the Ezra Klein stuff. I have no idea what actual material point that made other than him probably signaling the Hollywood fundraisers will stop soon if you do not step down. And then on top of that, I feel like he's often weighed in on a lot of the mergers and acquisitions and contraction that's been happening in the business. He was obviously he had a role during the strikes. He's weighed in on Paramount. He's kind of become a public intellectual in a lot of ways with this attachment to what's Hollywood's role in politics, what's Hollywood's role in business. Whereas Brad Pitt, it's movie and then vanishes kind of a little bit more.
And I think even Wolf's, does Brad Pitt do this without George Clooney?
Mm-hmm.
Do they walk the Venice red carpet, which, whatever the reception at Venice, which frankly seemed a little rude, though I haven't seen Wolf's. That is just two handsome guys just gallivanting, on the red carpet.
Well, Venice is a meritocracy.
Sure. Yeah, it is. That's true. That's one of the many reasons I love Italy.
We heard this morning from a friend who had a film at Venice, and I would say his reaction to it was not very positive.
Yeah.
The experience of being very different from the one that you had.
Like I said, I didn't have to do anything except see movies and then have Negronis. So that's a pretty ideal experience for me. And even the GQ cover to some point. My favorite part of the exchange is when Brad Pitt and Amal are making fun of George Clooney for his fashion choices. But it's I don't know that
her asking George, did you wear a radical color?
Yeah,
which
is
with me.
Just a really, really beautiful stuff. Your man was venturing out. But I do think that George is bringing Brad and Brad is bringing George in a lot of that stuff. And you don't get the classic movie star from Brad in the same way without George.
Brad talks about it. He was talking about the Ocean's 11 days, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, 13 press tours, and they're just kind of Clooney was our leader. He told the rest of us what to do, and when Clooney was sick or hurt, we were lost men, And I think obviously that's sort of a bit for a journalist, but I think there's some truth to it too,
Who do you like more?
I like them together.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a special kind of magic.
Just plead the fifth on that question on a movie podcast?
Well, I think so. Let's talk a little bit about the draft.
So wait, do you guys have opinions on this podcast, or is it a
first time listener?
Do you understand that you're going to be trapped inside with me all weekend long?
All weekend? All millennium.
That's true. But I'm just we're in a very delicate point in our lives right now. Physically, I'm not feeling my best. And I would urge you.
Should I still come over tonight?
I'm so good at booking this podcast. This is the only thing I'm good at, is knowing when to bring Zach in.
No, but so you made a couple changes to the draft.
I did make a couple of changes.
And they're good changes.
You want me to walk through them right now?
Yeah, because then I can talk a little bit about...
I see. Okay. Yeah, well,
are you still running away from the question, or what?
We'll let you circle back to it, because I will press you. I'll press all three of you about it. I did change up some of the drafting categories for this conversation. One, to honor Zach, who, obviously my brother. Two, because I thought it would just be boring to just do the typical genre categories that we typically do. So we retained some of the categories, but these are the 6 categories that we'll be drafting in for George Clooney and Brad Pitt movies. 1, blockbuster. Figured we'd retain that. That's an interesting measure of their stardom. 2, Oscar nominee. Both guys have won Academy Awards. They've both been nominated for Academy Awards, not just as actors, but as producers and as writers in some cases. 3, Brad and George together. They made a number of films, and maybe not just the ones that you're immediately thinking of. And that will create some, maybe some desperation.
It's not a deep category.
It's not a deep category. The 4th category is directed or produced by. Now, George Clooney has directed many movies. Brad Pitt has directed 0, but they've both produced or executive produced many films. Both of those are options here. Number 5 is supporting role. We are fond of saying that Brad Pitt is a character actor trapped in Brad Pitt's body.
Yeah, but he's still a character actor who gets the most screen time a lot of the time.
Most of the time. He has had some supporting parts, as has Clooney. In fact, they both won their Acting Academy Awards for supporting roles. And number 6, wild card, which means any movie that these guys have made.
And so the eligible pool is movies starring Brad Pitt or George Clooney and or directed. Well, no, I'm defining that because to answer Sean's original question, I'm curious how our tallies will go in terms of like the number of Brad movies versus the number of George movies.
I mean, I think
and I
have a sense this is going to be a tough pod for George.
I do. The filmography doesn't lie. So I think in the movie sense, my answer to you is probably Brad.
She's like at a Senate hearing.
Yeah, very carefully navigating
I
whether
do
or
not
not.
recall seeing Syriana.
George Clooney is a charming guy with a long fucking memory.
Yep.
Okay, so if he hears this, I would love to hang out at Daivo anytime he wants to invite me to Venice.
Hey, big dog, it's okay, man. I love ER. It's like no harm, no foul. We're just calling him like we see him.
So you lean Brad as well.
Yes.
In their movie careers, set aside their personal lives for a minute. I know you're a journalist and you need to remain impartial, but for the purposes of this podcast, where do you lean?
Man, so Clooney is a very charming guy. And his dad was a journalist basically too, on TV. Talk show host. And he has inherited that, like, I have to win over everybody in the room. And it's very real when you're in front of it. It's like a tractor beam. It's like he speaks in perfect paragraphs and there are jokes and like funny off-color things. And he's not conservative or scared. He is so comfortable in his own skin, which is interesting because I think that on screen, my favorite Clooney roles are when he's like not so comfortable in his skin. Like it's the kind of like American Syriana, Clayton stuff that I really, really, really love from him. Probably like the charmer roles, like with the exception of Out of Sight, work on me less. And then the Pitt thing is like the charisma is crazy and he's not even doing anything, which is kind of probably the definition of like what a movie star is, like you're just like, oh my God, I like this guy. And I like to like be in his presence. And he's compared to George, very, very reserved. Still very comfortable, but like he's just vibing. But as a movie star, and then it's funny because I think with him, the things I like are the more outre stuff, the things where he's like cutting it up a little bit on camera, which is not him in person.
Like David Ayer's Fury, for
yeah,
example.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. Or the movie where he played Stanley McChrystal.
That was a New Year's
War
movie
Machine.
War Machine.
Yeah.
What's that?
That was a New Year's movie once, right? Fury.
It was New Year's when me and CR and Mark Lasanti went to go see it in the movie theater, and we
so
celebrated
that's
as if
not
the new year began.
Okay, then I'm thinking of a different straight to Netflix.
No,
He
that was
did
War
Irishman.
Machine,
War
which
Machine. Okay.
which I was just referencing. War Machine, a movie that is largely forgotten at time, but interestingly, when I was hosting this podcast and that movie came out, the guest on that episode was Matt Bellany, because I had him come on to talk about the idea of windowing and movies going straight
You really
to streaming.
truly are
Yeah,
the
and Netflix,
spring
like,
from
making
which everything
movies, yeah.
flows.
I had
you
a
know?
strong feeling, not just that Matt Bellany would one day turn out to be quite an accomplished guy, but more specifically that Brad Pitt making War Machine was one of the most significant things that had happened in the history of movies. And not that movie itself, but the idea that someone like him would make a movie for a streaming service, which really to that point hadn't happened a whole heck of a lot. There were not a lot
That's
of
really
genuinely big. And the interesting thing about it is he's never done one since. That's the last time he made a movie for a streaming service
Wolves is
until this double shot of Apple movies, both of which they negotiated were supposed to be in movie theaters.
Isn't F1 really going to be in movie theaters, though?
For sure.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
they said.
Yeah. I would be very surprised if it was not on 3,500 screens. But Wolves, we're talking about this movie because Wolves, ostensibly, when this episode comes out, will be opening in theaters on this one day. I'll be trying to see it in movie theaters. Zach, I think you're the only person among us who's seen it.
I've seen it, yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I really did. I think that it's well, people will see it, but they're very charming, and it's just leaning into that rapport and that vibe, and it's them doing jokes, and it has that meta element, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit too. Of these are two guys in the movie. They're playing two guys who are like masters of their craft, which in this case are being fixers, basically like Winston Wolfe type characters, but they're aging out. And so I like a good meta bit in a movie where it's like, are you the character or are you yourself? And I think the script in the film does like a fun job of playing with that aspect of it.
Chris, I was thinking about this with you. So it's pretty unusual for people with the wattage of George and Brad to have an ongoing partnership as movie stars, especially since they've made, is it 6 movies or 7 movies at this point together in various forms?
Mm-hmm.
I think for our generation,
What's the 7th?
maybe it's only 6.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Although there is much talk now of Ocean's 14 on this day when we are recording, as directed by conclave filmmaker Edward Berger. Tough one for the Soderbergh heads.
It's not a real Ocean's movie without Steve.
Just call him. What are we doing?
You think he wasn't called?
I answer the phone, Steven,
I don't think it's that he didn't answer the phone. I think his take was probably not what they wanted to do,
I agree with you.
if I had to guess.
I think most people think of Redford and Paul Newman when they think of these two guys together. That seemed to be like the analog example. Is this like the best version of that partnership? Like, are there other historical versions of team ups? Obviously, there are a lot of man and woman team ups through movie history.
I asked them which one was Redford and which one was Newman, and they were like, "Whoa, no, no."
Because they were like, we couldn't possibly assume such a mantle.
I have a take on that. Do you want to hear it?
I'd love to hear it.
I think Clooney is Newman in the public eye, and Brad is Newman on the CV. In that Newman has better films and a better movie career. Redford was, Paul Newman is sort of like walked in civil rights marches and had Newman's own. But when you think of their character, like Redford's character more clearly resembles Brad's character to me. And also George and Redford have very up and down CVs historically.
Yeah, that's true. I would say like Redford and Clooney kind of remind me of each other in some of their institutional work, I guess. Like, he creates Sundance. He's obviously
the statesman,
the conservationist side of him. But I think you're probably right.
Who contributed more to our American culture at large, Robert Redford or Paul Newman?
I mean, Bill's going to burst in any second, right? So I have to say Paul Newman,
I think Paul Newman.
I mean, I think we all think Paul Newman, with all respect to Robert Redford.
Yeah.
The greatest ever.
I think it's also the difference between that, I think, is a little bit that Paul Newman was like clearly it was like master and apprentice, and he was like bringing him along with him, whereas like these guys feel a little bit more even, right?
Yeah, although, as you pointed out, like I think Brad was still a little bit secondary to George at the outset of the Ocean's movies. I feel like Danny Ocean is the titular character of that movie, and he was clearly the leader on that production. It's an interesting dynamic that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clooney is the more successful guy first because of ER. And I think before that was a General Hospital. And like people forget, I was looking it up this morning because I was like, oh yeah, it was like, what was it? 20 million people watched ER, 40 million people watched ER.
Yeah.
And I was one of them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Great. Sat there with
Yeah.
my mom. We were like, wow, these doctors. These guys.
But Clooney talks about how they both went out for Thelma and Louise, and Clooney was like, I knew that whoever got that part would become a star. Brad Pitt got that part, and basically, like right after that, becomes a giant star. And it took Clooney a lot longer.
I guess I prefer the films of Brad Pitt. Clooney is tricky though. He does surprise you. I think you're right that every once in a while, every 7 or 8 years, he decides to do something artful and that he's not directing, and he wins me back.
Yeah, the directing bit is interesting. You know, just millions of old people loved Boys on the Boat. I heard
It's true. It did do very well,
and I congratulate them. But apart from that, it's sort of like his choices.
Would you like me to bring in the man that Zach and I golfed with in December who saw Boys on the Boat?
Boys on the Boat, I do remember.
He's
you guys
roughly
come
70
home.
years
I
old,
mean,
and he
it's
loved
like,
the film. His favorite
also,
of the year.
As soon as it made it to airplanes, just everybody just dialing that up. But I mean, I guess the directing is part of the choice thing because his choices are like iffy.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he's good in so many things. I think back to that Ticket to Paradise
Mm-hmm.
scene, you know, where is it Caitlin Dever comes in?
I think it's Caitlin Dever's
his
friend.
comes in, and we're like, oh no, this is going to
Is
go
it
very
Billy
badly.
Lord?
And yeah, right. And instead, Clooney just does like the heartfelt 3-minute dad thing at the bar, and you're just like, this guy has it, and he has it in a lot of things that are not great.
I mean, this is like stating the obvious, and it makes sense because of the conceit of this that we're comparing them to each other. Like, but if you take those two and compare them to anyone else,
Mm-hmm.
they really are on like a tier, in my opinion, that like very, very few currently working people are on. It's like it really is like them, and then like a huge gap.
And then it's like Damon and Affleck.
Right.
and
But I think
stuff,
Damon and Affleck are like a tier below. You know, I think you could maybe put like Denzel up with them or something like that.
As celebrities or as filmmakers?
As screen presences, as just like that's a movie star. You know, it was funny. I probably shouldn't say this.
Which
but
Affleck
it's
are we
not.
talking about right now?
Ben. I was talking about Ben.
Okay, well, just making
no, I know.
sure. Well, in the context
You think
of-
Casey's entering the
Well,
chat?
we were talking about Ocean,
Yeah.
and then they did
Yeah.
also have like their Wolf's Jr. in August.
I
that
think
you
it's
and
like
I watched.
like Julia Roberts, Denzel, but like I don't think there's
Yeah.
a lot of like there was a temptation like say like with GQ to put the cover line just like the last movie stars because what they represent, what they mean, what it feels like when they show up on screen is just it. You just don't like. Now, like maybe someone like Chalamet will get there. I think the expectation is at some point he will, but like right now they exist in a pretty singular category. So we can like, it is fun to compare the two. And I think they have strengths and weaknesses, but like, if you step out, you're just like, these guys are, it's one of one, it's two of two.
I would argue both Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks and Denzel all actually elevate above those two guys.
That's interesting.
Personally, I think Hanks and Denzel are a little bit older. Cruise is a contemporary, but he has that kind of alien quality of like, has he ever met Brad Pitt? Like, I don't even, does he ever lived in a city that is also occupied by another movie star? You know, like he's just, it's hard to compare him to other people because he seems so different. But I think that those guys represent a concept of Hollywood, maybe not movie stardom, that is still really
it's
strong.
Front row of the Oscars.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like these guys would be like, if there was a city council for Hollywood, they would be on the board.
Yeah.
And
George, especially like you were saying, the way he answers questions, he answered at the Venice press conference questions about what streaming has meant to Hollywood. And I thought he like really threaded the needle on a really complicated question where he was sort of like, there used to be 32 shows and you looked at the ratings every day and you got fired if your ratings were at this number. And now there are 600 shows. And he was like, that's great. And we need to work and actors need to work. However, basically very quietly saying most of this stuff sucks and that's not good for us long term. So he has that mayoral quality that you're talking about. I have also forgot that they both have won Best Pictures as producers.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating, significant mirror image for them too. And it's something that not a lot of actors can say that they've done over the years. And certainly not a lot of movie stars for movies that they did not star in, which is remarkable. And Plan B, Brad Pitt's production company, which is, run by Jeremy Kleiner and Dee Dee Garner and is like a very big and successful and kind of legendary production company. And then is it Grill House? Smokehouse is George Clooney's. Maybe a little bit less prestigious, but it's still like made a ton of stuff over the last 25 years. So they have pretty expansive careers beyond just their movie stardom too.
Have you ever been to the Smokehouse? Because it's named after the restaurant in Burbank, right? Like right by the Warner Brothers lot.
I haven't. It's
I'd
a
like to
barbecue
go.
place?
No, I think it's more like a old school steakhouse.
Okay.
Like large wedge salad situation.
Do you think they would host us for a live pod?
Not anymore.
Not after this.
Now that we've desecrated
yeah.
George
Yeah.
Clooney's work and his, yeah.
How do you guys feel about their participation in children's films over the years?
I mean, I did not know that Brad Pitt was voicing multiple animation movies.
Yeah. Megamind, have you seen that one?
What's that about?
It's about a superhero voiced by Will Ferrell.
Oh, what is the nature of this superhero's powers?
Big brain,
Well, his
right?
name is Megamind.
Yeah.
You can
You know
imagine.
what?
I know. I was just
You're
deducing it.
supposed to be on my side.
I didn't see
on
it.
this one.
I
Okay.
didn't see it.
What about George Clooney's participation in the Spy Kids franchise? Did you revisit any of those films, Zach, for your interview?
No, I was wondering if you were talking about Fantastic Mr. Fox, but that's not really a kid's movie,
That's
is
also
it?
on the
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
as is the film
Yeah.
If.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt was also in If, which I learned preparing for this.
mean,
Who
in
was
If,
he?
but
yeah,
yeah.
sure, but he was one of the voices. Which one?
I think he was playing John Krasinski in the film. It's an amazing performance.
That is a movie that I went to see
So immersive.
because you asked me to. So,
Uh-huh. Great pod.
Okay, hold on though. Brad Pitt is Keith, a silent and invisible If who keeps tripping Cal. Pitt's silent role is a reference to his cameo as Vanisher in Deadpool 2, co-starring Reynolds. But so if he's silent and invisible, then he didn't do anything. So he's just credited.
This is a
without
really
showing up.
interesting philosophical conversation about
Okay.
what constitutes acting.
I agree with you.
He was just in the booth, quiet.
Do you think he received any compensation for his work / non-work as
You
Keith
think that
in
this
the
would be
film
his
If?
pro bono work, is being an If? Is like, we don't even pay me. I just want to be
But
here.
he literally didn't do anything, Chris. The character does not speak. It's an animated character.
I mean, there's lots of Charles Bronson movies where he barely talks. You know what I mean? Like,
You
Like-
can at least see him on screen.
Do you think that this was more like how many emails and or text messages were sent? And also,
don't
was
know.
it an email or a text message being like, "Hey man, can we just credit you as this silent character?"
Nightmare blunt rotation is
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, Brad Pitt, and who else voiced a character in that movie? I don't even know.
Carell.
Literally,
Right?
I guess
everyone under
Krasinski
the
would be
sun.
would be the
Damon,
fourth naturally.
Bradley Cooper, Bill Hader.
Gosh, If
or
you see If,
yeah.
Nah, I haven't checked it out
Yeah,
yet.
I missed
You
it.
know?
Yeah, it's tough.
I hear there's a made up creature in it.
More than one.
What's
Yeah,
his
it's a
name?
Multiple.
Snuffler?
Yeah, that's it. You got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Snuffler. Zach, you've never drafted with us before. How are you feeling?
I mean, I can't say I'm like thrilled to be in the cage with two homicidal maniacs.
What do you mean? Who are the two?
What do you
And
think?
Chris?
I
Just
I
two
resent
of
the
the most
implication.
competitive people I know, and Chris.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Zach and I have talked each other through a couple of our own fantasy drafts recently. So
Oh yeah, that's some like important context to share. Do you want to?
I would say my morale is low as a drafter right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't-
mine too.
yeah. I just
Your
really
morale is also low?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
came in with a plan twice and emerged feeling very poorly about myself.
overcommitted to rookie wide receivers and Mark Andrews.
Oh, you mean for
Yeah.
fantasy, not
Yeah,
for this. Oh, I
yeah.
see.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Zach had 2 this week.
and Breck both. So, but look, I'm ready here. Chris is probably like, oh my god, I'm with 3 of the most homicidally.
No, you're okay.
All right,
Just on
okay.
golf courses. And you're really nice unless you're playing with Sean and somebody hits into us, and then it gets weird.
What happens? Then what happens?
What do you think happens? What,
Nothing
do you
has ever
block it
happened.
out?
Am I in prison right now?
In
No.
this, in this,
Who are you making a
in this
podcast?
metaphor is Amanda the person who hits into us.
Yeah. You're playing too fast. Bob, Brad Pitt and George Clooney, do you like them?
Yeah, they're all right. They're fine. You know,
Is it a
No, I love
generational
them.
thing?
They're great. Of course,
Okay.
they're like basically for my whole life since I've been alive. They have been the guys, like the movie stars,
That's true.
pretty much.
Are they
Like,
big?
I don't
Yeah.
know a world without them.
Are they
as
your
are
like
right now?
definition of movie stars? Probably, right?
Yes, pretty much. And then
That's an
also some of the names you threw out, like Julia Roberts and Denzel and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
those,
then
even they
I have
probably
a special
precede-
relationship to Tom Cruise because A Few Good Men was like my first favorite movie.
Mm.
Once, like adult movie, once I moved beyond the realm of kids movies.
I think you can help us define a draft order. I don't know. Does this feel vital?
What do you mean?
I mean, I have some preferences.
No, you. So it does to you because it's a rich slate through a round or two, and then the strategy is really gonna.
But there are some
start feeling tight.
Some close.
There's going to
issues.
be a lot of category issues. I think of people taking movies in other
Yeah, I don't
categories and
feel
then
like I
just
have
being
a
like, "You've giantly fucked me here."
Full handle on
Right.
on
Yeah.
the strategy.
Even
around
though
that.
I tried to talk to you about this at dinner last night.
Have you
And
been
you were like-
giantly fucked before? Is that something you're familiar with?
I
I
also-
fucked
I
myself
also
where
asked
like
you a
I
very
picked
simple-
something in the wrong category and been like, I can't believe I took this in Blockbuster when I should have taken it in drama.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
How
you
was
want,
that dinner?
Do you want me to share what you said to me?
Sure.
Amanda was like, "You need to know that Chris might come in and draft something in the wrong category. You
It's
need
not
to
the
be
wrong
prepared for that."
category. It's just the wrong category. Is that really like a beat that you have for me?
This was a nice moment. Okay. I was trying to
No,
help
no,
him.
not to
me.
Chris.
By the way, this was a dinner where I literally had to move across. I had to get out of the booth because I no longer fit in it.
Is it
And
Houston's?
I literally I just couldn't. My stomach would not fit in the booth. So I'm in the chair across the aisle being like, can we talk about this category? And I just want to make sure you're aware of
Where
all the
were you?
ramifications. We were at El Cholo in Pasadena. Come through sometime. They make guacamole at the side of the table. Knox loves it. Anyway, I said, do you understand
But they're a little
what's
bit
going on?
like ungenerous in their booth sizing.
I'm
Is
just
what you're saying.
imagining
It was,
like
quite
being at El
snug.
Cholo, not knowing you and not knowing anything about this, and you sitting on the other side of the restaurant screaming about a draft for George Clooney. As your son
I straight up can't
shampoos
fit.
with guacamole.
I mean, that's true. I just I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
It was close. And so I did try to explain to him that there were kind of a limited number. And that's not what I said. I said, if Chris does an Iron Man 3, then we
By
might
taking
be...
something in the wrong category.
Yeah, well...
By wrong, you mean prematurely or actually categorically not the right place for it?
Because
no,
I think
not
technically
not
I'm right. It's just that like when
I think I can share the example I believe that you gave,
Sure.
which is there's like a right category to take oceans in and a wrong category.
There's not
to
a
take
right
oceans
or
in.
wrong category, but there's a category where everything stays on the board. Or there are a couple permutations in
this
which...
is why he and I don't really like playing blackjack with other people.
It's
It's because then people are like, what the fuck are you doing? And it's just like trying to get to 21. Like,
We've
what is
shared
the-
so many
Right, but
moments
it's
like that.
but I was trying to work together. Here I am. So what I was saying to him, I was like, there are a few executions of this draft
Uh-huh.
where then someone doesn't have a movie to select in a certain category.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That didn't occur to me.
Great. See? So maybe you should have come to El Cholo too. Okay?
Hard to believe you turned down the invitation. What did you help us with the draft order, Robert?
Yeah. So I have the Scrabble tiles in the Top Gun hat.
I don't know what.
Unfortunately, there are not enough Z's and B's in the Scrabble
Oh,
set,
no.
so N's count as Z's here for Zach.
Okay.
N.
Just so
Oh,
everybody
right.
knows.
Turn it. Yeah.
N, because I'm going to turn it to the side. Yes.
Oh.
So selecting first overall will be Sean.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
Yowza.
I think
Yowza.
no one wants to hear from me apparently.
What are you
about
talking
draft
about?
strategies. So I'll just sit here quietly.
Second, we have
Yes.
Zach.
Okay. I've been silenced.
I love eating with you. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's like I think you would enjoy El Cholo. You know, lots of enchiladas.
I think I've been there.
Yeah,
I've
there are
been there.
several.
Third, we have
man, all right,
Chris.
I wanted the turn. That's okay.
All right. This is interesting.
And fourth will be Amanda.
Okay.
So it's important that Amanda has the turn. We have to cite this because the three of us now have to think about what that means for her to have two consecutive picks and what her interests are. This is unusual. I feel like you very rarely have the turn.
Well, this is one of those
Would you agree
drafts
with that?
where it's like sometimes Amanda's like, yeah, I have where my heart goes, and then you guys can just do whatever. There's a
Right.
lot of shared interests here,
Yeah.
very shared passions.
There's one category that only has 7 eligible films in it.
I got to figure out what the seventh one is.
I can read them to you if you'd like.
Okay.
Would you like me to read
Yeah,
them to
that
you?
would be nice.
Brad and George Together has 7 eligible movies. There are 3 Oceans movies in which they appear together. There's Burn After Reading.
Yes.
There is Wolves, which we will include.
Mm-hmm.
There is If, which we just discussed. And there is Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Oh,
Which
right.
is George Clooney's
There we
directorial
go.
debut in which Brad Pitt appears momentarily.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the one that I was missing.
So,
Fun thing about Burn After Reading, by the way, is like I've watched that movie a couple of times and I'm not convinced they ever shot a scene together.
It's entirely possible they did not, based on the momentary scene that they shared.
And even that is like they're never in the same shot.
Yes.
Much like Reese and Jennifer in the last season of Morning Show.
That's true. Yeah.
Are they beefing?
No, but I think that they probably have such elaborate schedules that they're like, today Reese Witherspoon, we're doing her coverage.
And then, but like all of the scenes are
ones.
Ones with like a wig.
We think that's just a scheduling issue, or
I don't know.
I mean, we don't really know. Someone swore to me that the last scene, spoiler alert, when Reese Witherspoon's character turns herself into the FBI, that they were in fact together.
She was present during January 6th.
Because she was on Jan 6 and then she tried to
oh,
get
right.
Brothers
You did tell me. Yeah. That's cool. Really cool show. Great. It got like 38.
Chris, do you think Eric Adams is going to follow in her footsteps and turn himself into the FBI?
You think he's just going to walk up to Merrick Garland with his hands out like that?
I don't know. He respects law and order.
And then they hug on the street, and apparently that was a real hug.
Bobby, I was asking Sean when his apology for being Russian propaganda was going to come.
This has all been one long psyop. Thanks
a really weird move
for sponsoring this pod. I don't know how we would have gotten it off the ground. Just a reminder, the categories are Blockbuster, Oscar nominee, Brad and George together, directed or produced by, supporting role, and wild card. I'm going Brad and George together, and I'm going Ocean's 11. That's my first pick.
Okay.
I feel like in the spirit of this draft,
that's sensible.
Given the scarcity
Strategically sound
around that film, the fact that it is an amazing movie that I think the four of us can agree is we share.
I think it features also the
it.
greatest single example of the two of them sharing a scene together.
So, right.
Yes. Rusty and Danny sitting quietly and
we
talking through the plan. Yes.
We need one more.
Yes.
Yeah. Which to me, for all the Redford and Newman, is more of like a 40s screwball.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do have, like, whether it's Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn or or Hepburn and Tracy, like that energy. That's very magic.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. It's more like a romantic chemistry tension that they have between them than it is like a bros partnership.
Right.
Kind of like Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. Yeah.
Have you seen Anyone But You?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought it was mostly shot by a drone.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I mean, that is
that your description
factual.
of the filmmaker or the mechanical object called a drone?
No, but didn't it feel like every other shot was like a drone shot?
The Sydney Opera House.
I think in the film's defense, I think it was a COVID production, maybe.
Yeah.
I had anytime they're in Sydney, basically, at this time, it's because the one place that you were allowed to shoot was in Australia.
Yeah.
So any movie kind of that's taking place then, I'm like, you made this.
I think it's a movie that is literally made for people who spend all their time watching reality TV on Netflix.
Or TikTok.
And so that style of
or Emily
filming,
in Paris, which is made the exact same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, where like the camera pulls
Can't
away
wait for
to
season 2.
An overhead shot from 10,000
feet. The Sex Lives
feet.
of College Girls is also like that, where no scene lasts more than 7 seconds.
Yeah.
It's cool. Everything's going
this
very
is
well
great.
in Hollywood.
We're like, 20 minutes in and just, congratulations to all
four
the
40-year-olds sitting around a table hanging out. Okay, so Ocean's 11 is my pick. So, Zach, with your first ever draft pick.
First ever draft pick.
History.
I'm not sure if this is strategically the soundest move, but I'm going to take Michael Clayton in Oscar.
I think that's good. You did
movie
good.
I love. Don't really probably need to say much about it here. Also, I think Clooney would have loved to have won for this movie. Kind of fascinating they didn't, but he lost to Daniel Day-Lewis and There'll Be Blood, I believe, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that was never going to happen for him.
Hard one to argue. He'd also already won by this point.
For Syriana.
Yeah.
But I think he regards this as probably the high water mark of his filmography, and I agree.
Do you agree with that? I know you're thinking about your pick, but do you agree?
I think it's definitely the high water mark of his filmography, yes.
It's like a really... That's one that we all four agree on as one of the great movies and great performances. This you floated to me at 7:15 in the morning the other day in the kitchen, being like, so it'll be Michael Clayton #1, right? But you know what? I think you made a good job.
And the Oscar category, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's got some hits, it's got some misses.
I think what level of comfort you have drafting a movie that does not star them is an interesting aspect of the category too.
Right. Because there's a lot of plan B in there.
Yeah.
All right, big
CR.
guy.
For Oscar, I'm going to take Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I love you.
Okay.
That was nice.
Chris, Jesus Christ.
No,
that was nice.
Because I know what's going to happen now.
Just come on, dude.
What are you talking about?
What are you doing?
What do you mean? You want me to take Moneyball from her?
I mean, I can't expect him to do that. He has to go home with her.
Yeah.
I actually, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Either
is better than
Moneyball or an
Moneyball.
Ocean's movie was your only move.
No,
here.
it's not.
Those were the only
No, it's
moves you
not.
had.
No, it's not.
I just cannot believe you.
What are you talking about?
She's going on leave. Like, I need you to
You're
get
my
your
guy.
fucking shit together.
You know what? You're my guy. And you're invited
This
and
is
I'll
shit.
to
This is
Angelo
fucking
anytime.
crazy.
When you said it, I was like, yeah, it makes sense.
Once Upon
I
a
don't
Time
really
in Hollywood
understand-
is a better
yeah.
movie than Moneyball, with all
Yeah.
due respect to Moneyball. Brad Pitt won an Oscar for Once Upon a Time
It's
in
not about
Hollywood.
what's better.
She's gonna. I
This
know
is-
exactly.
no.
Do you want to just go back
This
to
is
my
Mike
turn?
Chris's
Here's my only query.
journey through his love of movies. That's not what this podcast is about, okay?
You don't even fucking post the results of these things anymore. This is just you. You're like insane. You're Megamind.
My only question is, should you have taken it in supporting?
Oh.
No, there's so many Brad Pitt supportings that I can go for there,
Okay.
and I'm sure
Alright.
George Clooney has some good
Okay.
supporting work as well. So,
All right. Do you want to do my picks for me?
No, well, yeah, I do.
Do you want to write them down?
I do.
And then see
I
if
have
I'm
them
right?
in my head right
okay.
now.
Okay. Honor system.
Okay.
All right. Obviously, number one Oscar nominee, Moneyball.
Congratulations.
'Tis the season. Here we are all together. I love this movie.
Justice for Barry Zito.
If if anyone listening is a film programmer, Sean and I will show up and introduce Moneyball as many times as you need.
We've pitched
honestly.
it.
We pitched it like
I think 5 times
everywhere.
now, and everybody's like,
Like-
"We're good, thanks."
Like I will
We'll do the other one you
I will
recommended.
come to your house, you know, if you're screening it for 10 people and just talk about, you know, the beauty of Brad Pitt shoveling food into his mouth. An amazing Brad Pitt performance that sort of like unifies all the different parts of him, including being super hot, not talking that much, character actor, manic, eating everything, but also holding the center of the frame. Amazing Jonah Hill performance. I love baseball, I guess. Watching a lot of it right now. Okay, and then Ian, Brad, and George together, I will take my personal favorite of the Oceans trilogy, Oceans 12. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is where this category already starts to really thin out. Yeah.
Which we have to do for, again, that is a little bit strategic, but I do also, I
Just so disappointed.
I
in
wasn't
you.
in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh.
You know?
You weren't in 4 Weddings and a Funeral?
That's the
It's
line
from the
from
movie.
Oceans
From the
12.
movie, yeah. Stylized.
I hosted that rewatchables.
This is when Amanda was explaining what you
Watch-
making the
okay.
wrong pick.
No,
Like,
that's actually, that's
This is
not
bullshit.
it. That
No,
was
you're
not
only
a
saying
wrong
that because
pick.
you just got the 2 movies that you wanted most
that
at
would've
the
been
time.
bad.
for
You just
fuck's
wanted
sake.
her to
If
be
he took-
upset. It's not about like whether I'm going to win or not.
What would be
What-
bad
what-
is if he was just like burn after reading in wild card, you know, in round 2.
That would be much worse. I
Right,
agree,
well-
but it doesn't mean it's not
Or if
bad.
Zach
what he
comes
did.
in here and is like Ocean's 11 and Blockbuster, and I'm just
Do
like,
you guys want me to
Jesus
come
Christ.
back, or should I?
I'm going to take Burn After Reading and Brad and George together, which is what I wanted.
There you go.
What are you mad
Mr.
about?
Cohen, man. Well, you should have, you know. You got fucked with the first pick. You actually did. That was the strategic thing. Is you
No,
didn't
I
want the-
made the first pick to have strategic fun with the draft.
I understand.
And they didn't play along.
But having-
That's why I made the comment at the start. Let's think about what it means for her to have the turn, guys.
Yeah,
so that
but
you could have screwed her in Brad and George
they're
together,
afraid
but you
of me
chose
and
not.
You're not. That's the only.
I'm not afraid. I actually got the 2 movies I wanted. Why is this bad?
Go for it.
I
Burn
did. I
After-
took Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading is a pretty good movie, right? Coen Brothers. Remember?
Do you know that a majority of that was filmed in the apartment building next to me when I lived in Brooklyn Heights?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Would
when I
you
was
like to
my-
trade it for
No,
Ocean's 12?
no. But it was like my first year in New York.
Uh-huh.
And all of the DC parts, they used Brooklyn Heights instead of DC for, you know, whatever reasons.
That's
And so
interesting.
the townhouse, like the brownstone.
I wonder if they
so-
were ever shooting on the
where I
same
lived.
day
I
as
did
Law
not
and
live in a
Order
brownstone. Let's
SVU.
be clear. I lived in a tiny apartment. But yeah, they were just camped out for like a long time.
Okay.
I benefited from craft services. They were very nice.
One of my favorite Brad Pitt performances. Great George Clooney performance.
Brad
Unfortunately,
Pitt is really good in this movie.
he's fucking the security of your shit. That's something I need to think about with my J. Crew passport. You know,
It's like that's truly like that. He's next level funny shit from him.
Did you ever end up building that thing in your basement that Clooney has in the film? Did you get that
George
going?
Clooney also has a very funny line where he's like, "Do you want to do it in the back seat? I mean, of your car, not like a rear entry situation." Tilda Swinton's face when he says that. Just completely flat. But I can't even enjoy it, you know, because like apparently I've ruined your day. You know, everything's going your way.
Has Zach betrayed you yet, or just Chris?
I think I'm about to.
They both fucking cucked out. I don't know what to say.
Well,
Like, this is insane.
Were they supposed to take Moneyball and Ocean's 12 from me?
I love you guys. You're my best friends, but like fucking get on board with the game for fuck's sake. Jesus.
I'm with Chris on this one. He got the movies he wanted.
Bob, leave it alone. All right, park that shit somewhere else. All right, dude. Why are we even playing the
This
game?
is it. It's honestly
When Brad Pitt's like, you think this is a schwinn?
I feel like you
That's
did
amazing.
the work after the great Thanos meltdown of whatever year that was.
And
where
all
you
it took
fucking
was- all it took was
started
me coming
crying
back.
because I took Endgame, and then now you're fucking back. You were like,
I don't want to do
let's
this
just talk
anymore.
about movies. This is fun. I like hanging out with my friends for like 2 years or something like that. And now you're like, I'm back. The only thing to do is make a 9-month pregnant woman insane. That's why we draft.
Well, if you were in the fourth pick, I would have said the same thing. I would have said the same thing to the other drafters. It was more about, I came up with this category to make it fun, and now it's not fun. Now it's boring.
Okay.
That's
All
my
right.
take.
Well, that's good podcasting.
Okay.
It's just to
Good
tell
job.
people to turn it off now.
I don't know who's gonna yell at me for this.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm not doing this right, but in Blockbuster, I'll take Inglourious Bastards.
That's correct. I mean, that was the right decision. I wanted it, but I knew I was leaving it on the table.
This or Once Upon a Time are up there for me with Pitt, and man, is he just awesome in this movie?
Incredible. Aldo Rain.
Aldo Rain.
Okay.
Probably favorite final line of a movie that he absolutely crushes the
Mhm.
delivery of.
So I have 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
My plan was foiled.
And just a desperate love of cinema that you're transmitting. to
Well,
the
I've
world.
lost both of the Tarantino movies.
Uh-huh.
That's on,
So
that's on
you-
and
you're the
had
one
to
who
know
got
that was
fucked.
coming.
That's
That is why pick number 1 is not a good pick order. That's not what you wanted.
So actually, you were hoping we would mess Amanda's draft up, but what happened was we messed your draft up, and that's why you're mad.
Well, I was always going to be in a difficult spot having the first pick, to Amanda's point,
Yeah.
because they're beloved
Yeah.
movies. But I mean, there's still plenty of stuff for me to pick. It's just not exactly what I would have wanted. Once again, thwarted on getting a Tarantino movie. I've been told literally by Quentin, just take my movies first, you fucking idiot. So my bad.
That's what I did.
The odds were not good that it was going to come back to you with the Tarantino movie.
Can you?
I knew
did
that.
you tell
well, as soon
Quentin,
as you decided not to do what I was hoping you would
Well,
do.
take
yeah,
Amanda's
was
yeah.
that about the
movies.
live draft? Does Quentin know that I took Inglourious Bastards in the live draft?
I don't know.
I
haven't
just want
spoken
him to.
about
Quentin,
that.
if you're listening,
He was there. He was there in the front row.
I didn't get one of your movies this time, but I have gotten.
You actually
Inglourious
gave him the
Bastards
Sofia Coppola book. Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice. I have an extra copy. Wants it. I have drafted it before.
Okay. Well,
Take Monuments Men, big dog.
one of these is, there's still a lot of good movies out there. The tricky thing about this draft is because of this design, a lot of them you can't get until you go to
It's a wild
card.
card, yeah. Very interesting.
So there's going to be a
Mhm.
ton of great stuff that actually gets left on the board because of the way that
like
I
intolerable
constructed this.
cruelty, yeah.
The Babylon Hive is watching you, Sean.
they can keep watching. In Blockbuster, I'm taking 7.
Okay.
I can at least get a Fincher movie before I die here.
You did a good job here, man. Good draft.
Thanks,
Good draft.
Chris. Really good being with you. Nice to see you. Hope I see a lot of you this weekend for sure. 7, obviously. I would say 7 is the movie that cemented Brad Pitt's stardom.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
You know, there were the Legends of the Fall type movies. Obviously, you mentioned the Thelma and Louise performance as like a big introduction to Brad's energy. True Romance is another one of those. This is the one where he opened possibly the grimmest fucking mainstream thriller of its generation and sold it. So that
Yeah.
would be Blockbuster.
Interesting thing about both of those guys in the 90s is that they were not for a long time considered like serious actors. So like Pitt was like seen, I think in part because of the tabloid stuff that even then he was a part of, was seen as a little bit of a lightweight prior to this movie, I think. Because even in 12 Monkeys or something, he's like, it's very weird. It's very out there. And then Clooney right around this time is doing Three Kings, and that's the famous David O. Russell yelling at him on set, why don't you worry about your fucking terrible acting, you know? And even Clooney tells a story where
Great note.
like Spielberg comes to it, which is one of my favorite things
Me
anybody's
during every
ever
draft.
said.
Yeah.
And then David O. Russell was removed from the set of that film, and Clooney is still talking shit about him to this day. But Clooney also tells like a story from this era where he's like on the ER set and Spielberg comes to visit.
Oh.
And Spielberg taps the monitor after a take and is like, he's like, you could be a movie star if you stop moving your head so much.
That's amazing.
That's
Holy shit.
really, really
that
good.
is incredible.
Yeah. That's a true Clooney story. So both of these guys, like right around 7, are like finding their legs as people who are actually thought of as actors and not just like handsome guys who came out of television.
Where are you guys at on the Peacemaker?
It's not bad.
Yeah.
When is it?
It's the
Oh,
one,
yeah, with Nicole Kidman.
the Balkans with the guy.
Yeah, sure.
Famous movie that also reset the trajectory of George's career because it was such a big deal at the time and really did not do what it was designed to do.
That's like an example of an action movie that did not work.
Okay. I've got to take another pick here. Oscar nominee is a really tough one. Really tough category. And when you combine produced or directed by, is it a bad thing, do you guys think, if you have 2 movies that they don't appear in those categories?
There's also like the minor distinction of Brad Pitt produced versus executive produced.
Yeah.
I think executive produced can be included.
Yeah. Although like Plan B, I think is actually pretty good about being like Brad Pitt worked on this movie
Yes.
or Brad Pitt didn't work on this
Well,
movie.
there's one very, very famous example that is complicated to talk through.
Well, yeah. Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe you do know what I'm talking about.
Well,
what do you think
asked,
I'm talking
like,
about?
do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's better for them to appear or not appear in the movie? And I'd say there's one example where someone does appear in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And
You're referring to 12 Years a Slave.
I am.
And you think it's not good that Brad Pitt appears as the benevolent builder who allows for our lead character to have a
I'm
future.
just saying that's like not on my supporting
Are you
roles
saying
list.
that Brad took that role for that reason? To seem like a good man?
I just
Surely not. A movie star? Well, I do like 12 Years a Slave, but that's not the
Yeah.
movie I'm thinking of.
okay.
The movie I'm thinking of is The Departed,
Hmm.
which is a
I
movie
think
that Brad Pitt produced, but there was an adjudication that he was not to receive the Academy Award on Oscar Day, that Graham King was the producer who should go up on stage and accept.
Did you ever find out why that was, or do you know why that was?
I mean, presumably Graham King worked more as the producer on the movie than Brad Pitt did,
Do you
even
think,
though Brad
like,
Pitt
Brad
has
Pitt
a produced
was
by
going
credit.
to be in that movie at some point,
And
right?
I believe that's why that
Right.
was the case, is that he was tabbed for the adaptation of Infernal Affairs that ultimately, and I assume he would have been in the Leo part. And that's the other thing. We didn't mention Leo when we talked about our last movie star conversation.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Leo's coming up behind those guys, and he never makes the... I would say he doesn't have as many pitfalls as they had over the years.
No. And also public life stuff. I mean, obviously known for having an active social life.
Yeah.
But
Just like CR.
has sort of like never commented on it or really had anyone else comment on it, which is not true of either Brad or George.
I'm pretty stumped here in terms of what's the
I
right
think
move.
many people have commented on Leo's.
But on like a
Personal
lower
life.
level, like you don't really see a lot
Yeah.
of Leo on Star Magazine stuff.
Yeah, or like famous
Do you?
partners doing Vanity Fair covers talking about the relationship.
That part is certainly true because he hasn't and he hasn't made it a part of his movie star, story in the same way. But yeah, there are plenty of Star Magazine covers. Just Google Leo MGMT, okay?
Oh yeah, well,
I
I don't have
there
to
we
Google
go.
that.
Because like I live that every night.
That one's burned into the memory bank.
Mm,
Love the energy that you're bringing.
I really
today.
don't know what the right move is. I
Okay.
mean, I'll take Moonlight in producer directed by. I think this is the best movie that's come out of Plan B.
So this is instead of Departed. You did
Instead
not
of The
take-
Departed. I did not
okay,
take
yeah.
The Departed. This is the movie that kind of like, I think, concretizes Plan B as a significant home for independent filmmaking. They're still doing this exact same thing, finding projects and making them big. They just produced a big movie though. What movie did they? Oh, Beetlejuice, which I was like, I find that to be so strange that it took Plan B coming on board for that movie to get going. But Moonlight, obviously Barry Jenkins' second feature film, which won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. An amazing movie. We've talked about it a lot over the years. He was the third guest of this podcast talking about that film. Okay. So now it goes to Zach.
Okay. I'm just going to continue following my heart here. And I'm going to take in Wild Card, Out of Sight.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good pick.
Yeah. There you go. Are you happy? Amanda's looking at me so sad right now.
No, I think it's like I'm proud that you're making good choices. But I also wanted to do that. So
if Seven is like the movie that kind of like makes Brad as a star, I think Out of Sight is the one that makes Clooney as a star, even though I don't think it was like a huge contemporary hit. But you can you see it. You really see it. And he's awesome in this movie. They have insane chemistry. And I absolutely love this film.
I think it's great to break the dam on Wild Card early, too, given the
Very wise.
strictures
Yeah.
of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
CR?
Well, I guess for in the spirit of what Zach just did, I'll take Fight Club and Wild Card. Because I think that this was
this movie made you understand politics.
I feel like you don't normally get Fight Club. So
like I don't get to draft it.
Yeah. So we don't get like this CR Fight Club experience. Speak. It's your time.
For a long time, I actually was just like pretty zeroed in on Edward Norton in this movie. I thought that like he was extraordinary in this film, and Brad Pitt was just chiseled out of rock and really good looking and stuff. But the longer it's been, I actually like noticed so many like wonderful things about his performance. Very nuanced, very funny, very funny performance.
Very funny.
And is still probably one of the most like. Not Tyler Durden as like his personal philosophy, but just like as a performance on the screen, like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Also, like fun to see a guy who could be alpha all the time.
Yeah.
Be like, you want to see the most alpha thing that you've ever
Yes.
seen in your entire life. And to Brad's credit, that's not his vibe, and that's not what he does in movies.
It's kind of like
but
when Joe Burrow's like, you can't zero me.
yeah, it's like literally that. He's just like, yeah, you can't.
Those are the two most alpha things I've ever seen. Tyler Durden and Joe Durden.
You're really fired up for NFL season.
Can't zero me.
Okay, so yeah, Fight Club, Wild Card.
2 picks, Amanda.
Yeah. I'm ready. The board is coming together for me in supporting role. I will, of course, be taking Thelma and Louise, which is the Brad Pitt breakthrough and just really important work from a teaching young women what torsos can look like, So
There's only one that looks like that. Yeah.
but it's what's possible,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
the David and then there's that. So that is my supporting role. And
If you were recasting that role today,
yeah,
who would you cast?
Austin Butler.
I was going to say Paul Walter Hauser.
It's not very nice.
No, I mean in a good way. He's cool.
Have you seen Richard Jewell?
Yeah.
I feel like that was
We just talked about
So
Richard
that's-
Jewell.
yeah, we
it's just a brave film, I thought.
Because we just did the 2021 draft,
Yeah.
right? And there was
I think that's for a later date, right?
yeah. So they haven't heard it yet, but there's a lot of Clint Eastwood related content on that.
Juror number 2 is coming out this year.
Wait, where do we have to fly to go see it? Oh, London.
Dubai. No, Dubai.
London.
Dubai.
No, it's only showing in Dubai.
Is that where the financing is?
That's
or-
right.
So you and I have to raw dog a flight to Dubai to see Juror
I
number 2.
misspoke. It's Riyadh. We have to go to Riyadh.
Okay.
I'll see you there.
Great.
It's on Christmas Day.
You're such a
Well, we always go to movies at Christmas.
Certainly do.
okay. I have one more pick.
Yes, you do.
This might be a little mean, but I don't really care. Sean wasn't very nice to me. So, in directed or produced, I will take The Big Short.
Okay.
Which could be eligible in supporting role as well.
Mhm.
But so can other things.
He was nominated for this, right?
For film.
Yeah, for film.
He wasn't nominated as a supporting actor?
No, because like
He's barely
like,
in it, but
he's
for
like
some reason I
okay
thought-
in it, but
yeah,
he has like
yeah.
a beard,
Great
and
beard.
it's just like, it looks pretty pasted on to me.
Yeah. Well, he's also shooting in like a room that clearly is nowhere near anywhere else.
Yeah, and he's just like calling people from the garage.
Yeah.
So, it could fill out a couple spots that you need, but I really like this film, and I don't really think he's that essential to it in a performance perspective, but it being made is great with me because then we have Ryan Gosling's Jenga speech. So, Big Short.
Zach, you're up.
I think Chris is up.
It's me.
I'd like to go to Zach.
Let's skip.
So, we've introduced the pass card
Yeah.
in the game for the first time. Chris, you're up.
Well, produced, directed by, I'll take Departed. A little bit of Stolen Valor here, I guess.
Yeah,
but
Sean really.
Good movie.
I had it on my list.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I mean, just
there are
more
other
like,
films. That's funny. You know what? I'll do what you did, where I think I'm going to take Departed and then I'm not. How about
Okay.
that?
Great.
I know what you're gonna take.
I'm going to take Lost City of Z.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh, good one.
I'm
Great.
surprised. Yeah.
Which is an interesting situation because
Tell us more.
Brad Pitt was going to play the lead role in Lost City of Z and then stepped away. So not unlike, I guess, Departed. He's scheduling conflicts.
Sure.
You know? And then later worked with James Gray on Ad Astra.
Mhm.
Which was
Also produced by Plan B.
and it was produced by Plan B.
That was the reason that you profiled Brad Pitt in GQ.
And that's where
Yeah.
the great romance began.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between me and James Gray, to be clear.
But Lost City of Z is one of my favorite pods, one of my favorite movies that I've seen since we started doing these pods together, like the big
wonderful
picture.
movie.
Every time I
Yeah.
rewatch the movie, I'm like, oh my god. this
Yeah,
movie-
I think it's like a true
Incredible.
like American classic,
Great
and so yeah, thank you, Brad Pitt, for whatever you did to help get that movie made.
That film was financed by Amazon, but they did release it in movie theaters. That was at a time when they were really
Yeah.
pushing their movies.
Saw it at the
Yeah.
Los Feliz 3.
It's kind
I
of
was the only
weird
person there.
how many things I see now that are like owned by Amazon, where like at the bottom it'll be like an Amazon company. I'm like, I didn't know you guys owned that.
I think I
Yeah.
interviewed
I
James.
think you've just given us a real insight into American capitalism. Yeah.
I think I interviewed James 5 times when that movie was coming out.
Oh, because you would do the screening
Yeah.
circuit with him.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
I love it. Also, I feel like you, Zach, became friendly with James right before Knox was born. I remember a lot
Yeah,
of just, yeah. So
but that
I'm-
was really
now I'm-
I guess it was kind of no, it was after Ad Astra. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's later,
just
in,
like-
later in life.
him just checking in
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
how the whether
You know who's
the
really
baby's
good in this
here.
is Pattinson.
Excellent.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also
Incredible.
Sienna Miller.
Sienna Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's awesome.
Incredible.
I wasn't trying to.
It's 'cause she's a woman. You don't.
Everybody
you didn't
knows
like her performance.
that I think
Yeah.
her performance in 21 Bridges is better than anything Meryl
What's
Streep's
your
ever done.
favorite movie directed by a woman?
Zero Dark Thirty.
That was the only answer. That was the only answer I would
That
accept.
was
That was
beautiful.
directed by Kelly Reichardt, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Kelly Reichardt, Zero Dark 30. I would fucking crowdfund that.
You would tap in.
Yeah.
We might have to.
Okay, Zach. Now it is your turn.
Okay. Just because this category is dwindling, and I feel like Ocean's 13 takes a lot of heat on this podcast.
Mhm.
Not as good as 11 or 12, but it's a good movie.
It
This
is
is
a
like
good
a
movie.
movie
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
would fire up at any time. I guess the knock on it in this context is probably it's more of a Damon forward movie,
Mm-hmm.
Chino forward movie than a Brad and George forward movie. But
You fucked you. That's what that means. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about.
But I really like this movie. And I'm proud to have it join my burgeoning roster of films
Okay.
in this draft. So in Brad and George
What?
together, I'll take
Why
Ocean's
are you
13.
still mad? It's been like 25.
I'm just pleased you got fucked on this category.
No, he didn't get fucked.
What do you mean? He doesn't have a movie yet.
What?
Yes,
For
he
which
does.
one?
He has burn after reading.
Yeah, I took that second round.
Oh shit! I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's why I was like, why are
Wow.
you getting so mad at me? I'm still gonna get a
I
Coen
guess
Brothers.
right. So that was gonna be there for me later if I wanted it. But
Right,
luckily, there's
right,
a lot of options,
right.
so I'm not stressed.
Damn, that's painful. Okay, I have 2 picks. This is tough. My categories I have left are Oscar nominee, supporting role, and wild card.
Normally, I'd try to bring you back in, like energy wise, but like you're mad because I'm thriving, so I can't really do that.
No, I'm not mad. It's not about you thriving. It's
You
about
mad.
the lack of gameplay.
You mad?
Don't tell people I'm bad.
Maybe you should try to get him to host the movie instead of me this weekend.
Host the movie?
Yeah, remember we were talking about how we wanted you to provide a cool space for our children to watch movies this weekend.
You've lost the opportunity for me to do anything for you this weekend.
I'm not coming.
So you don't want to hang out?
I don't think so. Okay. I guess an Oscar nominee, I will take Argo, which won Best Picture and is produced by George Clooney.
I enjoy the film Argo. It
which
was
is
on my list.
A great movie. I don't really love a lot of the options there.
Would you like to read some of the other ones that you didn't?
I'm surprised.
Does everyone have an Oscar nominee at this point? Yes.
Yes.
They do. So you could do Syriana.
I was going to ask if you've revisited Syriana recently.
Yeah, I did not think it was very good. I think Clooney is very, very good in the movie, and I also think Damon is very good in the movie. But I think it is a little bit of a Boy Scouts view of how the world works, thinking it's the opposite. Like it thinks it's like, this is how the world really works, guys. It's like, look at me, I'm Patty Chayefsky. It's notable to me that Stephen Gaghan basically like disappeared from movies after that movie.
I really like the Robert Baer book. It's based on See No Evil. And in the Wikipedia entry for Syriana, it says that Stephen Gaghan got Warner Brothers to give him an unlimited research budget and no deadline, which I thought...
They also shot that in like 19 places.
Yeah,
right?
200 places.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that? I'm going to start doing that for Big Picture. Unlimited research budget and no deadlines.
How would that be any different from any other pod you participate on?
There's like 3 things I avoid in life, and it's like situations in which Sean might get really mad.
What are you talking about? We're constantly around him when he gets mad.
I'm doing my best to avoid it. Being humiliated as a Philly sports fan. And really, I would say the last time I was in here was for that. And now here Sean's getting very angry. So
that's right. Because you did rewatchables for Silver Linings Playbook.
That's right. That's right.
It's okay. New season. Turn the page.
What's the third situation that you try to avoid?
You know,
you don't want to share.
Talking to Amanda about Brad Pitt. I don't know.
Okay. In wild card, I'll take The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Great pick, man.
I really wanted that in produced by.
I wish he made more Andrew Dominic movies. They made two great ones.
Yeah.
Matt, think of how good Blonde would have been if he would have played Marilyn. You know, that would have been just a much better movie.
Stuff,
don't you think?
Stuff. Just pretend that one didn't happen.
I'm letting you guys have your time to talk about dude movies. Keep going.
He just picked twice,
I
didn't he?
picked twice. I'm done.
I know, but I thought maybe he would. I thought maybe you guys could heal through talking about how much you love The Assassination of Jesse James.
Do you think that's a rewatchable?
For whom? To whom? Yeah. I mean, for me, it is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie.
Jeremy Renner's really good in that.
Is he? Is he even in it?
He's in it.
Okay.
He's trying to make.
He's like the 8th lead.
I didn't say it was his first line of his obituary movie. But
I think you're more of a Robert Ford or more of a Jesse James.
What do you think?
Take the fifth
in
on
some
that.
ways, in some ways, I think I have Jesse James-esque qualities, but I know that you think that I'm Robert Ford because I was a coward about killing
I didn't
Amanda.
say that. I haven't said anything about your bravery or lack thereof.
Okay.
I'll let the people decide.
I think that this has been a big fake out on your part. You're big mad because we all drafted you into a corner.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I mean, yes, that did happen. Of course that happened.
But has nothing to do with taking Amanda's movies from her.
Sure. If Amanda wins, it will.
But
no one wins.
What
I'll
do
be
you
putting
mean?
a poll up.
Okay, great. That's good. Do you know how to log into Twitter to put up a poll? Okay.
It's going to take me 3 hours.
You're like driving around place to place. Great.
You don't have to care for our child that day while I do some research, but we're going to get there. Is it my turn?
Zach is up.
It just depends on who wins. Okay.
Is Brad Pitt in True Romance enough to call this a supporting role?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely.
You think he's in it too much?
Definitely.
Yeah. No. I was just asking. I love Brad Pitt in this movie. It's funny. It's awesome. I like this movie a lot. Tempted to go The Counselor here, but we had to do True Romance.
I don't think I even listed him. Oh, I did.
For my pick here, I have to take supporting. And I haven't really picked very many George Clooney movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take Hail Caesar.
This is a really good one.
I like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
He's really good in that movie.
And he's awesome in
Baird
this.
Whitlock.
As the sort of dim Hollywood star who gets kidnapped and sets this whole thing in motion. Josh Brolin's the star of this film, but good supporting role from Clooney.
Okay.
All right. I have 2 picks left. They are Blockbuster and Wildcard. A lot of the blockbusters have been taken. All 3 Oceans movies, Once Upon a Time, Inglourious Bastards, Seven. You know, but that's I guess none of the Clooneys have. No one's taken Batman and Robin, or even said it. We just didn't even like.
And the
acknowledge
interesting
it.
thing is that Gravity has been mentioned once on this podcast.
Yeah, and so there's like a respectable thing where I take.
Did Flash
Gravity.
not make this list?
The Flash?
The Flash didn't make $100 million.
I don't think it did.
It's
And
I was wondering why Babylon is not on this list. According to my internal research, that movie made $200,000 billion.
Only you and I can see those numbers, Bob.
your own metrics. Yeah.
And you know, I could take Gravity. Did it win the Oscar?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I believe so.
And they were in space, and that looked really real.
He also doesn't appear in this film.
Um,
He just talks, right?
Mm.
Just his VO.
he's not in it for like the first 10 minutes,
I
and
think
then
you see
he
his
gets
face.
Do you see his
I think
face?
you do.
yeah, and then he gets shot out, and then it's pretty harrowing.
Yeah, you see a lot of them.
I don't have any Clooney representation on the board so far, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go with my heart
Mm-hmm.
and also with money. And no, Gravity actually did make more. I'll just go with my heart then and do Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I really like. And it's like a turning point, certainly in Brad Pitt's career in a lot of ways, and also his personal life. But I just think it's a very funny movie. And then, like, honestly, I have not revisited Gravity. So
I actually don't think I've seen it since I saw it in the theater.
yeah, me either. It's very good.
I don't know if I have either.
Maybe I should check it out because Corwin's got that Apple show coming up. Disclaimer.
I heard it's okay. I wish he had made a movie instead, but you already knew that.
Yeah. And then, and I'm just ignoring you. You're just like bad vibes. You know, you work on your own shit. In Wildcard, I could be really mean to you, but I'm not going to be. This is only moderately mean to you, and I will take Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies.
Curveball.
And well, I needed to have a Clooney.
I wasn't even going to pick it. Okay.
This is a delightful movie.
It really is very
Yeah,
good.
it's very good.
Yeah,
And Clooney,
it's
great presence.
One
in
of
this
his
film.
great performances, you could even say.
Yeah.
And it, even though like because his voice is so distinctive, the first time that Zach profiled George Clooney, it was during COVID, and so it was over
It's
Zoom.
a Zoom, yeah.
And I just remember like I don't normally do this, but it was in our old house,
Multiple Zooms, yeah.
and I just like stood by the door, and like I couldn't even hear what you were saying, but you would hear the cadence, and I was like, "Yep, that's George Clooney. He can really make it sing." So, but yeah, wonderful movie. And now I'm done.
For Blockbuster, I'm going to be taking World War Z.
Hmm.
I wish I have a question for you.
Okay.
Next David Fincher film. Next David Fincher film. Apparently, he's going to make a Western. That's great. We're very excited about that. That's the rumor. He's also rumored to be making Squid Game America.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have the Squid Game movie by David Fincher or World War Z Part 2 by David Fincher?
Definitely World War Z Part 2.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I mean, I've been wanting him to do a grand scale, big time war movie forever. Squid Game, I don't know. I don't think that's really going to happen. Is that actually going to happen?
I don't
Squid Game
know.
America?
You think that's part of their, like, you will fund two Manx if you make, and a killer if you make a Squid Game movie for us?
Maybe. It's possible.
I don't want to be cynical, you know?
Well, he's making a Western, so that's one more thing he's added to the ledger
Yeah.
of things that he wants to do that they probably don't want him to do as much. So,
Anyway, World War Z is actually a pretty good movie. It was obviously like chopped up and rewritten and all this stuff, but there's some really awesome set pieces in it. It starts in Philadelphia. I think I've mentioned that before. Do you think that the zombie outbreak would begin domestically in Philadelphia?
I was thinking about how that robot. Remember that robot was like traveling around the country and then went to
yeah.
Philly, and it didn't make it out of Philly.
It got bad.
So
Yeah,
I don't,
that
I don't,
robot,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't think that's where it starts. I think that's where it ends.
He was such a nice looking robot.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt's awesome in this too.
Yeah.
Very cool. Like he wears a scarf. He solves infectious diseases, and
Do you wear scarves ever? Have you thought about that?
I do sometimes.
When he's in England.
Yeah, but like
Not like a
yeah,
as a fashion
you take
statement.
it off.
Yeah,
right.
I do.
It's outerwear only.
Yeah.
And you haven't thought about
Except in the pubs.
part of the layer. Well, he's just such a layering enthusiast.
I am, but I don't do it as like a kind of like just a splash of color or
Okay.
kind of thing.
Well, maybe J. Crew Passport can help you with that.
Okay. World War Z, and that concludes my list.
What?
Just-
He stopped talking.
Oh
I
my
gotta do
God.
something. Sean is like fully just went home.
I'm still making my picks.
Zach,
Zach's
is
you're
it
up.
back to me? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my last category is directed or produced by. I think we've all agreed that The Departed is stolen valor, right? We can't do that.
I think that's cool if we do that, but that's also you can
it's
do
eligible.
it. You can
It's
definitely do it.
eligible.
I
I think we both strongly considered taking it.
Yeah, and I'm strongly considering it right now, but in the I Can Only Be Me and A Man at This Table and take Killing Them Softly in this
Awesome.
category.
I was hoping somebody would take it.
Yeah.
Is this the best Brad Pitt performance?
That's
No.
interesting. I think
Which I drafted round one.
I think it's a very cool movie. I think he's trying to do something that maybe doesn't come naturally to him in the movie.
Be real
Which is like-
mean.
Would be like a tough guy from the East Coast.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
really what I think of when I think of Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
But he's great and hit the first time he sits down with Gandolfini in the bar. That's
God.
like the funniest scene in movie history, where Gandolfini is just being incredibly disgusting and brutal. And Brad Pitt, who is a professional murderer, is like, whoa, this guy is going way too far here.
Yeah.
It's great.
Also, the last I call that the last scene in Inglourious Bastards. I will say the last scene in this movie, and Brad Pitt's delivery on
Oh,
that
yeah.
line.
Fuck you, pay me.
Yeah, he's like, now pay me my fucking money or whatever he says is great. And also that I think that's sort of what he's trying to do is like a guy who ultimately, it's a movie about capitalism
Mhm.
and the amorality of it. And he's trying to embody that in that moment. And man, does he. So
Great movie.
It all comes down to this.
yeah.
Well, in supporting role, I'm taking Babylon, which is just the best.
Mhm.
And
Does it make you happy to have that?
yeah. Do we get
Yeah.
Sean back now?
Yeah. I've been here the whole time. I've been extremely present. Babylon. So I'm hosting this episode of this podcast as clearly as I can. Babylon. I think the listeners of the show know about Babylon, right?
Yeah.
What else do I have to say? Is it a good Brad Pitt performance?
I was just going to ask that question.
Is it the most self-referential Brad Pitt performance? Yeah. Is this the most self-referential Brad
There's
Pitt
one
performance?
scene when this scene with Gene Smart, and then spoiler alert, his last scene are both really good.
But Chris's point about the self-referential
Yeah.
thing is interesting. I think in some respects it's like a little uncomfortable in that way.
Because of him confronting the idea
I mean,
of
it's sad.
not having
Yeah,
a
but it's
legacy.
like very,
Being very lonely.
Being very lonely.
um,
Yeah. And just like he knows intimately the ins and outs of like what it actually is to be that guy. And obviously he lives a great, fulfilling, interesting life, but there are very weird, sad pieces to it.
Yeah.
And he's just playing that in that film in a way that, like, again, if you kind of know, and I could even generalize, not just like Brad specifically, but if you know how a guy like that lives, a lot of that reality is in that movie, for better and for worse.
A number of movies were not drafted. A
Mhm.
significant number of movies that these two have participated in part because of the constraints. So we've talked about Gravity already, didn't go. We've talked about 12 Years a Slave, didn't go.
Snatch.
Talked about The Departed. We haven't talked about Snatch. I haven't talked about 12 Monkeys, which is
Mhm.
Brad Pitt's
Mhm.
first Oscar nomination. Thought about 12 Monkeys. He's very good in that. I don't know if it's a movie that has as much of a legacy as it used to. Would you consider George Clooney's role in The Thin Red Line to be a supporting part?
Yeah.
I thought
Although
about
I don't
that.
know if he thought it was a supporting part when he signed up to do the Thin Red Line.
Agreed.
He might have been like, I am starring in the new Terrence
Yeah.
Malick movie.
Um,
Speaking of Terrence Malick, Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Tree of Life. I almost
right.
took that in
That's
directed
right.
or produced.
He's very good in that movie.
That is
Yes.
a real that movie stuck with me.
yeah,
and-
I'd forgotten about that.
So
That's
no,
like-
and we didn't pick The Counselor.
we didn't pick The Counselor.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the movie that Clooney is most proud of after Clayton is Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which also was not drafted.
I thought about it in Wildcard. I guess it could have. It wasn't an Oscar nominee for him, so he only would have been eligible for Wildcard, right?
Wildcard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
kind of the
Which is again,
checklist,
like you
yeah.
say, it's an interesting thing that a lot of these movies are just in Wild
Good Night and
Card.
Good Luck,
Mm-hmm.
which was his first directorial debut, and it's the best for sure. And then 2 Clooney movies that are celebrated by others.
What about Confessions of a Dangerous Mind?
Yeah.
Oh,
his
that's right.
first,
Yeah, you're right. Okay, sorry. His first nominated, to be generous. Up in the Air and The Descendants,
Mhm.
which definitely had him doing the awards run.
I think those are broadly beloved movies, not
Yeah.
as much on this show.
Exactly.
Descendants, I like. Up in the Air, I have nothing positive to say about that.
That's
movie.
my guy.
I'll just throw out the I rewatched Ides of March recently.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It was better than I remember.
He's really good at
As
it.
a supporting thing, I thought
And as
about
a-
him for that.
As a directorial effort, it might actually be the one that I would probably watch the most.
Over
think-
Good Night and Good Luck.
I think
Yeah.
actually Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is like the most interesting movie he's directed.
You like Midnight Sky. the
Well,
most.
I don't. The thing that's inextricable for me for that is that Charlie Kaufman is like, you fucked my child so
Yeah.
bad on this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I made this amazing script and you ruined it. And he will never forgive George Clooney for that, which I find fascinating. It just felt like maybe if he had waited 10 years to make that movie, he might have made a better version of it.
Well, the interesting thing about Clooney's directing career is I think the consensus most like movies are the first ones that he's made. And then as he goes on and starts making like Tender Bar or whatever, people, Midnight
Hey,
Sky.
Excuse me. Ben Affleck was wonderful in the.
I'm
Tender
not
Bar.
I'm not criticizing those movies. I'm just saying that I think they have less of a reputation than the early
That's true.
movies that he's made.
What about Benjamin Button?
I realized I had not like rewatched. I writing about these guys. I've like rewatched most of these movies like relatively recently, and somehow I just never rewatched Button.
Interesting performance from him. Kind of a weird,
What's
very
your-
still
What's your favorite era in Benjamin Button?
Baby.
Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baby
Old
Button.
baby?
yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Old Man.
I'll bet.
Three Kings, not drafted.
Three Kings. A movie that I like. It's increasingly, as we get further into the David O. Russell experience throughout our lives, it becomes harder and harder to go back to when I was like, Three Kings, Huckabees,
Mm-hmm.
Flirting with Disaster. I loved those movies in the 90s and early 2000s. I thought they were like where it was at in American movies. And now, I don't know. It's like, did he get much worse? Did the world get much worse? I can't really figure it out. But he's like over his last 5 for me personally. I know that's not true for the
Yeah, it's
Silver
tough.
Linings Playbook boys.
It's a lot of strikeouts.
Did you see Amsterdam?
I didn't.
Okay.
I think I saw that trailer so many times, like in whatever
Yeah.
era that came out, and I was just like, I just don't think I'm going to see
Yeah.
this.
And then you did Christian Bale for Amsterdam, right?
I did. And we
Yeah.
talked about David O. Russell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Talked about it with Clooney too.
What'd they have to say? Same
Well,
same
Clooney
thing.
called him a miserable fuck. It's just straight up. Again, not any prompting of mine. And Bale was like, yeah, he abused Amy Adams on the set of American Hustle. Now, Bale was currently making Amsterdam with him. So Bale was like, we made our piece. But
It's tough.
Didn't make a good movie though.
Sort of the way you've abused Amy Adams on this show over the years.
Listen.
Night Bitch coming.
Yeah. I'll never see that. So good luck to you.
I'll be seeing it. It's part of my job here at The Ringer.
If you had to pick one domestic animal to turn into, what would it be?
Really good question.
So like domesticated, like
Cat,
in the
dog,
home,
but
right? But,
also,
not
like,
like elephant.
You know, an iguana? Do you like just lying on a hot rock and staring into the middle distance all
that
day?
seems like Sean's vibe. Yeah.
What if I could become Blue from Jurassic World, but I was like a domesticated raptor? Is that acceptable?
But you have to live with Chris Pratt
But yeah,
in the house that he tore down the architectural landmark for. And every day you watch him eat his like cutting diet, you know, where it's just like
Just keto, yeah, all
egg
day.
whites
Yeah.
and like, whey.
You think he's a good housemate?
I bet he's probably like more fun than we give him credit for.
Blue or Chris Pratt?
Pratt, right?
Blue is not real. He's a CGI dinosaur.
Like I bet Chris Pratt would be like, want to watch Chiefs night, you know?
yeah, I think so, right?
But he'd probably be like, man, the Chiefs are awesome, huh?
Yeah.
Well, then we'd have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Any other movies we haven't named? No one took 12 Years a Slave.
That's true.
Interview with a Vampire.
No one took Troy.
I thought you might.
Just get crazy.
Well,
Take Troy.
Isn't Troy one of your secret? I've seen this movie like 300 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a rewatchable to you?
I mean, in the sort of more original sense of like the movie that you just stick around and watch 25 minutes of because it's on. Sure.
Okay.
It's not a great film by any means.
Can I ask you guys one final question before we get out of here? If you could like switch their roles in any one of these movies,
Awesome
either that
question.
it was
Amazing
taken or
question.
wasn't
Question.
taken, which would you be most intrigued by? Trading actors into a different movie.
I mean, you can easily see Brad Pitt doing the Hail Caesar part, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt when he does Burn After Reading is so funny. So yeah, give him Hail Caesar. Give him. I mean, I'm the only person who rides for Intolerable Cruelty, but like, give him Intolerable Cruelty. I think that would be the funniest thing ever.
What would I want to see Clooney do that Pitt's done?
I'm looking right now.
Well, it's funny because, you know, Clooney is playing the Pitt part in Babylon and Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
washed up actor.
And Brad is doing
who's-
Gravity and Ad Astra.
Yeah. They both have space movies. I mean, like, I could never see Clooney in Assassination of Jesse James, for example. But I
Could you see Clooney play Aldo?
I do. I think so.
I think
Yeah.
so as well. Like, I mean, Brad Pitt is obviously so good in it,
Yeah.
but he could do it.
The Tarantino thing is like the one where I was like, I want to see Clooney in a Tarantino movie, and it doesn't seem likely to happen these days. But that's one where I just can picture it. I know Quentin would do something interesting with it, but yeah, I don't know if there's like he couldn't do the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I don't
part,
think so.
You know,
But personal lives notwithstanding, I think Clooney could have done Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
oh yeah,
Clooney
Yeah.
could probably play Billy Bean.
ooh.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe looks more like Billy Bean
Yeah.
than Brad does.
You know, Bobby, there's like an
You need to
interesting.
take it away from me.
When I asked them like, "Oh, are you guys competitive?" And they basically were like, even from very early on. I think it's partially like just they're both represented by the same agent, but they're kind of like we've just known what each other are up to like since we started, and because of that, have always kind of like stayed away from each other's turf in a very specific way. So, unlike a lot, like if you talk to Christian Bale is like, I went out for 9 parts that Leonardo DiCaprio got. Like he's constantly auditioning for the same parts. I don't think these guys were really up for the same part in anything ever, basically since Thelma and Louise.
Can that really be true?
I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I
But again, like
That's a
what
fascinating
would
question.
be the example?
don't know. Did Up in the Air get sent to Brad before it got sent to
Mm,
George?
mm.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you hear that, and obviously they have to get along because of their partnership
Sure,
as
yeah.
movie stars. But the way that it works, where people get scripts in an order, and that the only people who really know the answers to that are the agents and the people who wrote who are sending the scripts out. It's a very good question, Bob.
I think Brad would have crushed Fantastic Mr. Fox.
We'll only know based on his performance in Megamind. Yeah.
Maybe.
And if, but you have to imagine.
Yeah,
You have to imagine it,
it.
yeah.
There you go.
Well, here we are, man.
Are we done?
No, we
You
don't
wanna-
have to
yeah.
be. We can keep going for as long as you'd like
Do you guys have any other thoughts you want to share?
about anything
Do
like.
you want us to read our drafts?
Oh,
I
yeah,
do.
we should probably do
yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay. Why don't we go in order of picks? So I'll go first.
Okay.
I closed the document already, so that's not ideal.
Would you like to read for mine?
No, I got it. I
Okay.
got it.
Sean left this table about 45
Yeah.
minutes ago.
In Blockbuster, I got 7. In Oscar nominee, I got Argo. In Brad and George together, I got Ocean's 11. In directed or produced by, I took Moonlight. And in supporting role, I have Babylon. And in wild card, I have The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert
You
Ford.
got all your movies, you know?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Guess you didn't get a Tarantino. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. In Blockbuster, I got Inglourious Bastards. In Oscar nominee, I got Michael Clayton. In Brad and George Together, I got Ocean's 13. I chose Killing Them Softly for directed or produced by.
Mhm.
Supporting role, True Romance. And for wild card, I got Out of Sight. A lot of George in mine.
Yeah.
You do have a
Yeah,
lot
good
of
George
George.
representation
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
I did not do that. In Blockbuster, I got World War Z. In Oscar nominee, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Brad and George Together, I got Burn After Reading. Directed or produced by, I took Lost City of Z. Supporting role, I took Hail Caesar. And for wild card, I took Fight Club.
Amanda.
In Blockbuster, I took Mr. and Mrs. Smith. In Oscar nominee, I took Moneyball. In Brad and George Together, Ocean's 12, my favorite Oceans. Directed or produced by The Big Short. In supporting role, Thelma and Louise. And in wildcard, Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's pretty much what you would have drawn up, right?
I would have done Inglourious Bastards in Blockbuster
Okay.
had you not. So good job.
It's a
And
very
I would have done
Amanda
Out
coded
of
list.
Sight in wildcard. So also good job.
Okay.
And
Good job. I appreciate the generosity. Yeah. John, do you have any compliments that you'd like to share with your
Yeah.
guests?
What did you...
Just an absolute honor to be with you here with
Yeah?
you guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
just
Are we
a
ever going
pleasure.
to see you again socially,
when do you
personally?
think you'll start responding to our text messages?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
do you
Who
think...
can say?
I
you
really,
know?
it's too hot in LA this
Who
weekend. I'm
can say?
counting on you. I need you.
You know, you can pay the tithe and see if I make my return to your lives at some point in the future.
What's the tithe?
Well, you'll just have to figure that out.
Are you really not going to talk to me until we do Rebel Ridge?
Who's doing Rebel Ridge? Is that something you're doing? Is that on the watch? Someone ask you? Did Bob ask you to do that? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
When's this pod going up?
This month,
Okay.
month of September.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to examine the schedule, see if maybe we can put it in the Indiana Jones.
This is nice. At
Great.
least like you, Zach, are making it out. Okay. You know what I mean? Like we're
What
gonna
do you
go,
mean making it out? Okay.
like we're gonna go home and stay married, which is good. And I wasn't sure whether in the first 10 minutes that was gonna work out. So Sean is having the tantrum in our stead. And we
What
appreciate
tantrum?
it. It's an emotional tantrum. You know, you're like Brad Pitt. It's like it's silent and invisible, but we all hear it, you know?
I don't know what you mean. I've maintained composure throughout this entire recording. Bob, have you seen a tantrum of any
Oh my
kind
God.
here on the pod? Jack?
No,
Yeah.
I think you seem very calm and,
Okay.
and
Thank
happy
you.
and
Thanks
pleased.
so much. Thanks to our producer,
you seem
Bobby
like
Wagner.
Michael Fassbender in The Killer.
Just missed the shot.
Get
The
you know?
energy I am
Yeah.
channeling
You've
every
been
day.
listening to the Smiths for the last 45 minutes.
Thanks to Jack Sanders for his work on this pod. Thanks to Bobby Wagner. What's the next episode? Is it The Substance? I think it's The Substance.
Are you trying to place this in its recorded
Yes.
Mhm.
chronology?
Yes.
Yes.
And then after that is what? Wolves.
Mm.
A separate Wolf's pod. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think you're doing a great job managing this podcast. I think that's awesome.
Congrats, you guys, on a this. This seems like a wonderful thing you guys have, and I look forward to checking out in the
So
future.
you haven't heard it
Yeah.
before?
Yeah, no, I mean I had heard about it. I think
Right. Yeah.
someone had mentioned it to me, but I just not. You guys made a fan today, and I'm
thanks
just
so
gonna be
much.
excited to listen
A
to
fan
this.
Yeah.
and a friend.
Thank you to Zach Barron. Zach, what's your title at GQ?
I'm the special projects editor.
The special projects
With
editor.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
What does that entail? What projects are you at work on these days? What
Well,
do you-
I work on a lot of Ringer podcasts. Actually, yeah, it's a funny thing.
Who's paying you for those?
Yeah.
Shield.
It's true. We've given you all of these Sheil Kapadia
That's
podcasts.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm paid in Philly special episodes, so as long as those keep coming, we're good.
Thanks to Chris Ryan.
You're welcome.
Amazing run you've had on this show that has come to an end today.
Remember when you said that back on the Deacons draft? We were like, this is your last appearance.
Don't remember that at all. Block that out. Many years of therapy, hydrotherapy. expunged it from my soul. I'm Sean Fennessey. I'll see you guys later on in the podcast.